This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, college football fans, and welcome to the Primetime Podcast. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And I say it every week, we've got a jam-packed show for you guys as we're kind of continuing on into the off-season. And Brandon, this is the time where the next, month and a half, I'm going to be really looking forward to July, because once we get to July, I think I mentioned this last week, but fuck it, I'm going to mention it again. Once we get to July, we can finally get to our conference previews of all the Power Fives, maybe even some of the Group of Fives if you guys want to hear them.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Brandon's like, whatever you say, Ricky.
Whatever you say.
I'm here for the ride, but we're going to be talking about some cool topics. Like I said, jam-packed show like I always do.
Yeah, there's nothing new about that.
We're going to be talking about some coaches that need a hot, fresh start to begin the 2016 season. Then we're going to dip into the kind of philosophical debate of whether these college programs like Alabama and LSU should be able to offer scholarships to 8th graders. And then we're going to finish up the podcast talking about Stanford's Christian McCaffrey and whether he will be the 2017 Heisman Trophy winner. But Brandon, we're going to start with these coaches, and we'll just get right into it. To you, who's one coach this season needs to have a hot start?
Well, I've got a couple, but I think my number one is going to have to be out of the Big 12, and it's Charlie Strong at Texas.
Okay.
And he's in his third season.
I feel like that's an easy one, though.
It's his third season. I'm saying it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got three. Told you I got three.
No, I know. I got a few, too.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Mine are the ones that matter. He's in his third season. You know, they start off with a home opener against Notre Dame. We know how well that went last year against Notre Dame. Insert the laughs, because it was awful. He needs to take back hold of the locker room. I think that's a really big thing for him. Guys last year, again, we've joked about it on here. We've talked about it on here. Guys did not want to be on Texas last year. You need to be able to get hold of that locker room, bring those guys back around, and make them want to be at Texas. Make them want to be a Longhorn. And for so long, people wanted to. People wanted to be a Texas Longhorn. Think back just a couple of years.
Mac Brown.
They wanted to, but that was not the case last year. That's what he needs to do to get back that locker room. So Charlie Strong is a number one. My number two, I think kind of a sleeper kind of guy.
Well, before we get into your number two, I just want to piggyback onto your...
No, you can't do that. I am not ready for you to piggyback.
I want to give some opinions about Charlie Strong, too. And the thing with me is the reason why I feel like to this point he needs to have a hot start is because, like you said, third year. This is going to be his third year as head coach, where, what was it, last year or even 2 years ago? The whole big thing whenever you turned on any station talking about college football was whether or not Charlie Strong was going to get canned. He was on the hot seat. And was it the whole thing of, should the boosters push him out to get somebody who can win now in there? The way I see it is, to me, the Texas Longhorns are like the New York Yankees of college football, except they don't win as much as the Yankees do. That's the only thing. I mean, back in the day, this was a prestigious franchise where you had the Vince Young leading them to the national championship, kids wanting to go there, kids actually having the burnt orange gear on even in the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago around us, but that's gone away. And you have this high prestigious franchise. They have their own television network, kind of like the Yankees and the Yes Network. They want a winner. Charlie Strong coming in from Louisville had some good seasons, and now after two bad ones, like you said, that's why. It's because of the prestige of this team and how they want to get back there, even though I think it also plays into that the Big 12 isn't anything what it used to be. But go ahead. Who's your second one?
Well, going back to Strong though, is that he's number one of coaches who need a fast start. He's also number one in my mind of coaches on the hot seat. Charlie Strong, I think, if he does not have a successful winning season with Texas this year, I think he's out.
Well, that's a discussion that I thought about having that one this week, but I'm like, you know what? We'll save it. We're going to save that one for maybe a random week in June, or if we get closer to the college football season, maybe in August, kind of like we did last year. Who's the coaches that are on the hot seat coming into this season? But let's alternate. I'll give you one of mine that I think needs a hot start.
All right.
And I necessarily don't know. I have 4 of them pulled up, but I don't necessarily know if this is like the guy who, out of the 4, boom, he's the number one. But he's the guy I'm going to mention first off is Mark Helfrich from the Oregon Ducks, because kind of a similar, do I want to say that? I kind of wanted to say almost a similar situation to Charlie Strong, just not as bad, because, I mean, Oregon comes in and, well, when he came in to Oregon, I should say, they were at the top. Chip Kelly had just brought them to national championships. Helfrich comes in that first year. They actually go to the national championship. And then in that second year, they kind of fell off. When Helfrich didn't have Marcus Mariota and he had Vernon Adams, it was a 9-4 season. I know what you're telling me, Ricky. It was a fucking 9-4 season. Get off the guy's back. But part of me feels like, and this is why I don't know if, I should say, he would be the top guy on my list, because you see 13-2, 9-4. Is that correlation going to continue in 2016 to where, you know what, 13-2, 9-4, the next one is 7-6 or 6-6, maybe 7-6 because they'll win their bowl game?
You know, I don't know. Last year, Oregon definitely had their struggles. I mean, that was apparent.
Well, it's because they didn't have the quarterback, and Vernon Adams got injured too.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is that. But you could tell that Vernon Adams was no Marcus Mariota. He wasn't, and you know what?
People expected him to be Marcus,
and that's okay that he was not. But yeah, people did expect him to be that. But I don't think that last year's season was a complete loss. You know what I mean? I don't think that when you look back at last year, you go, "Oh my gosh, the guy was so bad." No, I don't look at it like that. But a lot of the times, you know, I feel like that's a conference that gets lost a lot. The Pac-12. I mean,
it's because they play so late, right?
I don't, you know, we'll get into that later. But I'm saying
they play so late. Why would I watch them?
But I think that they do. I mean, they are a conference that I think is on the back burners of the rest of the conferences. That's how I feel. You know, a Pac-12 fan may tell me to go F myself, but that's okay. They can do that. They have every right to say that. But I think that they would agree with me that they feel like their conference is probably now one of the top elite ones that people are looking at going, oh my gosh, this is going to be a good one again. You know, it's got all these strong teams, blah, blah, blah. Not the case. But I think that he did a fine job, an admirable job coaching last year. But fans are going to want him to step it up this year and be better, because what do they want to do? What does every fan want? Especially Power 5 fan that has a chance. They want a national championship. They want a chance of going to the college football playoff.
Well, and here's the thing where I'm going to throw back in this point of, then you can see, even if, I don't know if he goes 9-4 again, but as you go further into your time at Oregon, if you are Mark Helfrich, it's, okay, was that first year, was that 13-2 national championship runner-up season, was that because you had Chip Kelly's guys? Is that why you got that far? It wasn't necessarily you that got him there. It was the layaway talent that you inherited from Chip Kelly. And Oregon is like nothing special. New coach steps in. They run the same exact system as the guy before it. And it's just a revolving door of, you know what? This guy moved on. We're going to take his predecessor, move him up from offensive coordinator to the head coach. And the revolving door, the lineage kind of keeps going. So that's the only thing with Helfrich, where he's not going to be a guy who's on the hot seat, like a guy like Charlie Strong might if he has a bad season. But I think this year he has to have a hot start to make headway in that Pac-12, like you said, which is getting tougher. Give me your second guy. Who's the second coach you want to bring up for yourself?
My second guy, and I think this may be more of a sleeper type guy, but I think it's James Franklin from Penn State.
Okay, interesting.
And I say that because it's his third season. He's 14-12 in his first two, and he's underwhelmed. And fans have felt underwhelmed with his performance. And he's going in there. He's taking over a program that Bill O'Brien
had a lot of drama behind it, too.
It had a lot of drama, but Bill O'Brien did a good job while he was there. He got a head coaching spot with the Texans. Now James Franklin comes in, and I think that Franklin really needs to have a good season with Penn State. And personally, I think now that he doesn't have Christian Hackenberg anymore, he can. I don't think, especially this past year, I thought...
So you think Hackenberg was hindering his production because he had to start Hackenberg? Is that what you're getting at?
No, that's not what I'm getting at. That's actually completely wrong. I
Usually what I say is completely wrong.
I don't think that Hackenberg was hindering him, but I don't think Hackenberg was hindering him. I think Hackenberg was hindering the rest of the team because the quarterback's your leader. Hackenberg wasn't leading them anywhere. Under Hackenberg, you're not going too far. He's got a cap. In my opinion, he has got a cap. He is not that great. Again, fans, step in, tell me that I'm wrong if I am. But he needs to win some big games this year. He's got Pitt. It's going to be a big rematch with Temple this year after what happened last season. He has got to win those games. These are some big ones. I think Pitt and Temple are two very big ones. Pitt because it's a state rivalry. Temple, again, like I said, what happened last year. And really, I pegged Penn State to be sleepers overall, the team. I pegged them to be sleepers. But first, they need to wake up as a team. They need to be able to bring something to the table. That's why I think for James Franklin, he really needs to get off to a hot start this year with the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Well, and one of the things I'm looking at when I look at their schedule from 2014, 2015, and then at 16, the big thing that Franklin needs to avoid and his Nittany Lions need to avoid in his third year as head coach is the losing streaks of 4 games. Because they've had 2. Count them 2. 1 in 14, 1 in 15, losing streaks of 4 games. Where in 14 it came a little bit early, middle of the season, end of September, where they lose to Northwestern at home, they lose to Michigan on the road. Yes, it was a double overtime game, great game, probably should have beat the Buckeyes. I was hoping they'd beat the Buckeyes at home. They lose 31-24, and then they end up getting upset by 1 point by Maryland. Then they win 2 and lose 2. They also lost at Illinois that season, which if you lose to Tim Beckman's Illinois squad, we have a problem because they're historically bad. But then in 15, they do really well at the beginning of the season, lose to Temple, but then they just rattle off 5 wins in a row. However, at the end of the year, right as November hit, couldn't buy a win. They lose to Northwestern 23-21. They lose to Michigan on senior day 28-16, and then they fucking get hammered in East Lansing by the number 5 Spartans 55-16 before losing their bowl game to Georgia. So to me, it's got to be, you got to avoid the losing streaks. And I look at their schedule this year. There's a 5-game stretch. A 5-game stretch where I could see at least a 4-game losing streak. And it starts on the 17th. Temple, at home, doesn't matter. That's going to be a tough game. You can't lose it. At Michigan, home against Minnesota, home against Maryland, home against Ohio State. Those 5 games, you can't have a 4 or 5 game losing streak within those 5 games, because then you're doing exactly what you did the last 2 seasons and you're not going to go anywhere.
It's a tough stretch. But this is a team that absolutely needs to do well on it.
They do.
But I really think they can. Again, like I said, I think this team may be a little bit different because it's no longer going to be Hackenberg at the helm. But we're going to see what they've got. And I think for James Franklin, he's another guy that if he doesn't produce this year with this squad, I think that he's another one whose head could be on the chopping block at the end of this season.
Well, and I know that you think this team, I mentioned the word fake ID, you know where I'm going with this, but the big difference from last year to this year in the scheduling, the conference schedule for the Nittany Lions is take out Illinois and take out Northwestern. You don't got to play them this year. You get Purdue and you get Iowa. So you could look at it as the same kind of a thing where Illinois and Purdue, that lesser team that you should be able to beat. Iowa, though, that is a tough opponent, and especially playing them on the 5th and then going to Bloomington, Indiana, a team in the Hoosiers that you said could be sleepers in the Big Ten. That's what the Nittany Lions have to do. They have to avoid the losing streaks. I'm going to take your Big Ten coach, and I am going to raise you another Big Ten coach. Lovie Smith has to have a hot start at Illinois. 2 reasons why I'm saying this. And I'll be honest, it has nothing to do with making the college football playoff, has nothing about them winning the Big Ten. It all has to do on A, morality for your fan base, people like me, and B, setting your team up for success when you get to Big Ten play. Because if Illinois can do well against Murray State, if we can beat, now I'm not even saying like by a touchdown, I'm saying if we can even beat them by a field goal on September 10th, they being the Tar Heels of North Carolina, and then beat Western Michigan, I would be smitten. I would be so in love with Lovie Smith, and I would be partaking in whatever that he is selling at Illinois, because that's the big thing with Tim Beckman was you can beat the little teams, but then you throw that big one in there. We get killed by Washington, their place, or at Soldier Field. That's what I don't like to see. You go to Chicago and just get fucking owned. Same thing happened, I believe, when we played Northwestern at Soldier Field. But if Lovie can get off to a fresh start, if he can get off to a hot start, that is a key for him, especially a coach, because he's a different one than any coach I think we're going to bring up on this entire podcast, Brandon, is he's got to set the precedent of, hey, I can make the jump from the NFL to college. I can do this. I can get these boys playing, something that the other guy couldn't do.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's an interesting one, going with Lovie, but I think you're right, because now Illinois has said, they've put out there, they've gone, okay, we've got Lovie Smith now. Mm-hmm. We've got a coach that coached in the NFL, did good with the Bears. He's a guy that people can get behind, relate to, blah, 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 all this stuff.
He'll take you out to ice cream after you lose the Super Bowl.
But now...
He will. He took Rex out for ice cream.
Oh, gosh. He should have just taken him out permanently.
Should have taken him out back.
But
No.
But,
I'm throwing you off. Go on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Certainly throwing me off. But will he produce? You can throw so many things. You can have smoke and mirrors for so long until people start to go, hey, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
That's what they don't want to happen with Illinois. They've now thrown a good coach out there. Okay, now you feel spoiled. You feel like, oh, man, they went and they got Lovie Smith. We got Lovie Smith. Now it's time for results.
Although I do feel like I've seen this, I feel the same way when the Cubs went ahead, and I almost said Joe Madden. I'm going to say Lou Piniella, because with Joe Madden, when he got hired by the Cubs, I was like, well, fuck it. We're going to win the World Series in 5 years. That's what we're going to do. Like, we have that window to win multiple World Series. But with Joe Madden, you kind of knew it was coming. With Lou Piniella, you're like, man, we're going to win a World Series. But then you sat there and went, but we're the Cubs. Are we really going to win a World Series? You had that kind of little bit of doubt in your head. I'm the same way with Illinois. Oh, we got Lovie Smith. We're going to be good. Yeah, but we're also Illinois, and we haven't been good, and usually the worst things happen to us, especially when we hit to the conference schedule. So if I think Lovie Smith can have a fresh start with his team, a hot start to begin this season, carry it over into conference play. That's the one thing this team hasn't been able to do. Carry momentum into conference play. Then that Nebraska game is going to be huge because usually we play them to start Big Ten play, and they hammer us. They hammer us each and every time. It's inevitable that happens. But Lovie Smith, putting him up there, like I said, taking your Big Ten, raising another. Who's your next guy that needs a hot start?
My final guy who needs a hot start, we've talked about him already, and I'm going to go over to the SEC. I'm going to say Kevin Sumlin.
Oh, okay. No, we're different. We're different.
Kevin Sumlin. He needs the hot start. He needs the hot start because of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago on this podcast, and he really needs the hot start because of the production last year. You know, he didn't get what he wanted. They were so down in so many offensive categories, and they really need to get going. And if they do not, who is on the line for that? That is Kevin Sumlin. I think that what has happened with what happened with one of his assistants tweeting out, this thing about loyalty and all this stuff, and then they have some commits decommit, and I think that Kevin Sumlin, to put all this behind him and last year behind him, they need to get off to a hot start for his sake.
I was gonna say, man, for a second I thought that, hey, you know what, I was waiting for it. Brandon, are we going to pick the same guy? Are we going to have any guys who are the same? Kevin Sumlin needs a hot start just to save his job. Let's be honest. Like, that's the thing with Kevin Sumlin. I am going to throw in my last one, though, really quick, because you said SEC. Mine's a guy, and we'll play the guessing game really quick. I'll give you one guess. He's a guy that used to wear red and was in the SEC. But he's
Smart.
not anymore.
Kirby Smart.
No.
Oh.
He's not in the SEC. Smart is still in the SEC. Used to wear red. What SEC team, his main colors is red?
Georgia.
If you have, what was their head coach? What was his name?
Mark Richt.
Mark Richt. That's my guy. Kind of with him, need a hot start. You're at the U. You're at your old team. You need to bring this program back to life, back what it was. I'm talking Snellenberger days, because that's what this team wants. That's what this fan base wants. They want championships. Sumlin's the only kind of oddball in this entire group that we've brought out, is because he's not even thinking about a national championship. He just needs to save his job.
I think Strong also, though. I mean,
you think Strong is going to be on the hot seat coming in?
Oh, come on. How could he not be? He was on the hot seat for every game last year.
I'm just trying to aggravate you. I'm just trying to aggravate you.
I do.
And
I
obviously
think he's
it's
on
working.
the hot seat.
It's obviously
well,
working.
because I thought you were being serious.
No. I meant, that was my point I mentioned with Charlie Strong, is that he was going to be fired. But yeah, with Rick, you've got to come in and you've got to show me two things. One, you want to bring this program back to the glory days. And number two, show me that ending in Georgia was a fluke, that you are a great coach, that you are the good coach, that I believed you were the solid coach that you were at Georgia. But I'll say an honorable mention is Kirby Smart. Let's throw him in there. New coach, new situation. Kind of want to give a little middle finger to your what's the word I'm looking for? Your mentor, your kind of guy who brought you up in Nick Saban. Like, yeah, I can do this too.
Your mentor.
And I'm coming for your job. I'm coming for it. Not your job at Alabama. Your job as the best coach in the SEC. But that's going to do it for our kind of talking about who needs a fresh start. If you're listening on SoundCloud, on YouTube, go down to the comment section. Let us know what you think. Who is the coaches that need a hot start or a fresh start for the 2016 season?